I've been a fan and loved the Sonic franchise for as long as I can remember, and one of my favourite parts of it has always been the characters. And one of the things I hate the most about it is how useless they felt in recent times, mainly just standing around serving little to no purpose. And recently I finished the IDW comics and I've loved them. It has genuinely been one of my favourite experiences with the franchise, so today I want to ramble a bit about them. There may be some spoilers, but I won't be going through and saying everything that happens. I'll be pointing out moments from the comics to back up my points, and I'll be summarising my thoughts on arcs and stuff like that. But I won't be going through beat by beat telling you everything that happens. Before we get on to the main story, I want to talk a bit about my favourite characters in the comics that were originally from the games, and how I think they've been done well. So like I said, I do love pretty much all the Sonic cast, and all the characters but Shadow are amazing in this. They all act and feel how they should, and I love the new characters that were introduced. Also, I've chaptered this video, so to skip to the next chapter or this timestamp if you want to go straight to the story. I feel like Sonic is an appropriate place to start with this, and I love Sonic in the comics. As one of the three main hedgehogs, he symbolises freedom and living a way true to you. Silver symbolises hope and optimism, and Shadow symbolises good over evil. Throughout the story, Sonic sticks to his belief and ideals, but he does question them at times, which is something I really do like. One case of this is when they capture the Deadly Six and send them back to the Lost Hex. Savok looks at him and asks why Sonic's letting them live and go back. Sonic thinks about this. He thinks of the time that he let Metal Sonic go free thinking he was unarmed, only for him to be rebuilt again, and back to his old destructive self. He thinks of the Metal Virus when both Espio and Shadow blame him for what happened. Shadow says that if Sonic just let him beat Eggman when he was Mr. Tinkerer, none of this would have happened. I'll elaborate more on this when I talk about the story. Sonic still decides to follow through and let them go back to Lost Hex though, which is in character. We'll learn more about why Sonic does these things in his first fight with Surge, a character I'll get more into later as well. Sonic's doing his usual joking around, but she's dead set on killing him. To her, that's her only purpose. Eventually Sonic gets the upper hand and says that he doesn't really know her backstory, but he still can't let her hurt anyone. So just end it, she says. Nope, I'd rather give you a second chance to rebound. You see, I live for the moment. I want to see the world, find all its thrills and adventures, and enjoy them. I want everyone to have the freedom that I do, and you wouldn't get the opportunity if I took that chance away from you. I've made peace with enough enemies to know there's a better way, so I'm willing to chalk this up to a rocky start, and let us have our do-over, if you will. This here shows why Sonic tried to give Eggman a second chance when he came back as Dr. Tinkerer. It explains why he let Metal Sonic go after disarming him. It's because he believes that everyone deserves a second chance to be free like he is. Another example of Sonic explaining his beliefs is in the final issue of the Scrapnik Island miniseries. I'll get into the context later, but Sonic says this: you've got to give yourself value and purpose, no one else. You got to live for you, that's what it really means to be free. This shows Sonic's attitude of not following the pack and residing in the norms, but instead carving your own path and living a way that you believe is right. But Sonic isn't only laid back in the comics. There are times where he does get angry, like when he's chilling in the snow place and Deadly Six attack the Resistance HQ. You can see the urgency on his face, and especially in the Metal Virus when he finds Eggman. You can feel how angry he is and how much hatred he has for Eggman in the moment. All the friends that Sonic lost during the virus, all the damage it's done to the world, and Sonic actually does try to infect Eggman, but he does fail. The other main hedgehog I love in this comic is Silver. I see him get some hate from people in the comics, and I do think he can be a bit too silly at times, but I do still really like his character in this. And he does get serious when he needs to as well. And he was on point in the latest issue. It makes sense that he does lack a lot of social skills since he's from a future where he's the only one alive in this. He's more extroverted while someone like Knuckles is more introverted in that sense. As you should probably know, Silver's main goal is to save the future by going back in time and helping Sonic and his friends to save the past. We also go back to having Blaze from our own dimension in this instead of from the future with Silver. After the Metal Virus arc, Silver's future turns into a good one, and we don't see him again for a while until the 2022 annual, where we get this really good scene with him and Espio. So it's the harvest season and Silver and the gang are in his little garden. A nice callback I like from one of the previous annuals where Silver starts a garden to appreciate the beauty of the world. Kinda relates back to 06 in a way, where he was so amazed how full of life the world was. It's clear that Silver has something on his mind in this because he's really reserved and quiet, which is unusual. He walks off into the woods and Espio notices and follows. They have a little chat. I don't want to pry, but if you're concealing some sort of danger, I'd like to know about it. It's nothing like that. It's, well, I'm not here for the harvest. Actually, I have no idea why I'm here at all. Do any of us know why we're here? I do. I mean, I usually do. Every other time I've been sent to the past, it's been to save the future from turning into another wrecked world. That's my job, my purpose, and I always know what I need to do because it's history. But this time, nothing. There's no crisis in my future, and things are okay here. Everything's fine, but I'm not. Did I do something wrong? Am I missing something? What if some disaster hits tomorrow and SBO stops him and tells him to calm down, and he spreads some of his words of wisdom. As a ninja, my first priority is the success of my mission, but as a friend, I care for the safety of my team. Danger could be waiting for me around every turn. If I allow it, my fear will consume me, and if it does, I will have lost without my enemies even having to lift a finger. So how do you fight it? The fear, I mean. My technique is to simply have faith in yourself, and the strength of your friends. You may not know why you're here now, but that doesn't matter. You're where you need to be. And if there's trouble, there are quite a few people back there that are ready to stand with you. So go back to the garden and let yourself enjoy the fruits of your labour. You deserve that much. Right, I'm still scared, but I'm not alone. You guys always make me feel like I can do anything. Silver gives SBO a hug and they go back to the garden. This scene shows some of the reasons I love both of these characters. We get to see Silver, a usually optimistic character who's always had a goal in mind, a direction to strive for, feel lost. He's got a good future, but he still doesn't feel complete, and he doesn't know why he came back to the past, but he knows he wants to. And then there's SBO, my tied favourite Sonic character. He's usually a chilled out, calm and collected guy, and we get to see into his mind and how he thinks. He explains to Silver that yes, he does get scared, but he doesn't let it consume him. As long as he's with his friends, he's okay. He can protect them, and they can protect him. To him, you don't need a goal to have a purpose. By saying this to Silver, he helps him realise why he came back. He misses his friends, or at least that's how I see it. This is also a good way to segue onto my two actual favourite Sonic characters, SBO and Vector. I have so much love for these characters that I don't really know how to explain. This goes with the whole of the Chaotix, even though I'm not crazy for Charmy, but I love how Vector and SBO feel like real friends. There's this part in the Metal Virus where Charmy gets infected and SBO and Vector want to get him back. They both know that he's infected. If they do so much as touch him, it's over for them. But they still want to find him. But the way they both approach his rescue is different. Vector is eager to find him, but SBO suggests they wait before they make their rescue. This results in an argument, but in the end they both realise that they want him back. And eventually they do find him. They find him and take him into the Resistance HQ in a glass sphere. This obviously doesn't end well and Charmy gets out. They run into a room and as the door starts to close, Charmy flies into it. Vector grabs Charmy before he can hurt anyone. I swear kid, you're always such a pain in my tail. SBO shouts his name, and Gamel tells him that he needs to evacuate immediately as he's been infected. Vector runs out with Charmy in his hands. Yeah. I guess that's what I get for looking after my own. I'll beat him back. Close the door behind me. Hey SBO, you're the lead detective now. He says one last goodbye before the door slams shut. SBO falls to the floor, but Amy picks him back up and they escape. This is just an example of many where the Chaotix actually feel like friends that care for each other. I love how Vector and SBO contrast each other perfectly as well, with SBO usually calm and relaxed while Vector's loud and aggressive sometimes. There's this part in Murderer Sonic the Hedgehog I really like, where you're interrogating SBO and you clearly catch him off guard, but regardless of that, Vector steps in and defends him like a true friend. It's always a good time when these two are on screen, and I think them being detectives also makes him play a really interesting role in the main cast, also getting them into some pretty unique situations. I like the addition that they'll take whatever job they can, both because they need the money but also because they want to help as many people as possible. I like this one scene where Rouge helps them and she says that they don't need to pay her back, and then one of them says something like they're probably too broke anyway. I love these guys too much. They also have the best theme in Sonic Heroes and I'll die on that, maybe even like top 5 in the series. So now on to the actual story and the new characters. So for all the new characters, I'll introduce them as I go through the story of the comics, and the first arc of them is amazing. It focuses on Neo Metal Sonic as the main villain instead of Eggman like we're used to, and I love it for that. The story takes place after Forces in a post-Eggman War world, and it's a really great setting for the story. The Resistance HQ actually feels like it has a purpose in this, as well as it gives characters like Amy a chance to show off both their skills as a leader and ability in combat. The two main story points of this arc are Eggman coming back with amnesia and being good as Mr. Tinker, and Metal Sonic attempting to take over Angel Island. The action is really good and the art is like amazing in this comic, and the final fight against Metal was great. The first arc does a great job at introducing us to the characters and still having an engaging story and fights. We also get introduced to 3 new characters who haven't appeared in the games: Tangle the Lemur, Whisper the Wolf, and Dr. Starline the Platypus. Tangle and Whisper mainly just help out Sonic in this arc, but we'll learn more about them in their mini-series that I'll talk about in a minute. Dr. Starline does play quite a major role in this part in the arc, and is an overlying threat and major villain in the whole series, and I love how his character grows and changes as the story goes on, and the way his story ends is amazing as well, so stick around for that. At this point in the comics, he kidnaps Dr. Tinkerer and turns him back into Eggman. His character in this arc is that he's a big Eggman fanboy, whose main goal is to work for Eggman and serve him well. Tangle and Whisper get some time to shine in their mini-stories that mainly focuses on Whisper and her backstory. I also think that Whisper's weapon's cool with how she uses all the Wispons to fight. It creates some really cool action scenes. The main villain of this mini-series is Mimic, someone who used to be on the same team as Whisper before betraying them for Dr. Eggman and causing the death of all of the team apart from her. His main goal is to kill Whisper now as well. Mimic is a really cool villain in this mini-series. He's smart and dangerous as well as looking cool as hell. And he's an octopus, which is awesome. I love his character design. We get to see Whisper go closer to Tangle and explain the reason that she doesn't want to get close to anyone is because she doesn't want to put them in danger. I love Tangle and Whisper as a duo. They both bounce off each other so well, and they're always a joy to see. The next arc is the Metal Virus, and you've heard it all before. It is peak fiction. With Eggman coming back, he has a new plan to defeat Sonic and conquer the world, one far more evil than ever before. This was the Metal Virus, something that will transform the world into metal and infect anything that touches it, putting them under Eggman's control. However, the virus goes out of his hands and he loses the ability to control it, leading to a seemingly unbeatable challenge. This arc has so many great moments that I'm sure you've seen before. The arc shows both the strengths and the flaws of these characters phenomenally. We get some heavy character moments. Espio loses the Chaotix, Cream loses her mother, and gets infected herself. We see Tails stressing after his research on the virus gets destroyed. Sonic is infected throughout the whole arc, and we see it slowly start to take over him as the story goes on. Whisper watches Tangle, the only person she saw as a friend since Mimic caused the death of her group, get infected. We get these really powerful scenes where Shadow and Espio blame Sonic for the virus because he let Mr. Tinkerer run free. Near the end of the arc, Starline gets the Zetis to come down to Earth, and this causes Eggman to get rid of Starline, since obviously bringing the Zetis was not a good idea. But Starline didn't know that the Zetis would switch up on them, and Starline himself was also planning to betray the Zetis. So this means that the Zetis are on the loose and have one Chaos Emerald each, and the remaining members of Sonic's group have to go retrieve them. In this we get this really nice scene where Espio jumps through the portal after getting his emerald. He looks into it and says, "I may have been the only one here in body, but you were here in spirit," as he sees Charmy and Vector's reflection in the emerald. The scene at the end where Sonic and Silver turn super is also unbelievably hype. It's kind of a shame that all of the damage that the Metal Virus caused is kind of forgotten about after Sonic and Silver go super and stop it, but it doesn't really take too much away from the arc because it's still really good. And after this arc we get the Bad Guys mini-series, which is really fun and it focuses mainly on letting us look into the mind of Starline a bit more. So the main plot of this is that Starline wants to surpass Eggman by getting more powerful so he can prove to Eggman that he's worthy of being his helper. In order to do this, he needs to collect these sphere things that I forgot the name of. They grant either the ability of strength, flight, but it's not really flight, it's more like extra jump height, and speed. He can turn them into the Tricore though, which gives him the power of all three that he can switch between. Combined with his Warp Topaz that he can create portals with and his mind controlling glove, he'll make a pretty menacing foe with these. To retrieve the stones, he breaks some villains out of jail, promising that they can have one stone each to increase their power. These villains are Zavok, the leader of the Deadly Six, Mimic, who we saw in Tangle and Whisper, and Rough and Tumble, a duo of two skunks that have been in the series since like the 3rd issue. I just forgot to mention them earlier, that's my bad. They're pretty fun to watch and their whole shtick is that they rhyme their names before fighting. They provide some nice contrast to the other characters in the story, by how they aren't really evil and more just making some like mean decisions. Near the end of the mini-series, Zavok says something to Starline that makes him realise that instead of being Dr. Eggman's servant, he wants to surpass him now and prove himself the strongest. Once again, Starline tries to backstab his allies, and then they backstab him back after realising his plans. But Starline still comes out on top with his new power. So yeah, I really love this mini-series, and it actually lets us see into Zavok's character a bit more as well. Mimic was also cool as hell, like always. After this mini-series, I don't really have many things to say about the arcs until Imposter Syndrome and Overpowered, where we get introduced to Surge. But before I get into that, I'll point out a few main things. The main stuff that happens between these arcs is that we get introduced to Belle, a character that I'm not huge for, but I don't really dislike her either. Her main thing is that she was made by Eggman when he was Mr. Tinkerer, and her first main character arc was her coming to terms with that her dad isn't a good man anymore, and is now Eggman. We also see the Zetis some more. I've got nothing against them, but they don't really have any qualities that make them stand out over other villains that could be used instead. However, I did still enjoy these arcs, and we get some nice character moments like on the camping trip. The Imposter Syndrome miniseries I really like though. It serves as an introduction to Surge the Temeric and Kit the Fennec, two people that Starline modified so that he could train them to kill Sonic, his friends, and Eggman, so that Starline could rule over the world by not only having control over the villains, but also control over the heroes. He makes Surge with the main goal of killing Sonic, and Kit with the main goal of helping Surge. Surge has the power of electricity and Kit has the power of water, two powers that I think are really cool. The main arc that happens in this mini-series is that Surge and Kit realise that they were being controlled by Starline. and they hate him for that. While looking through his logs, they find out that he captured him, and as he put it, instead of putting animals in robots like Eggman, he'll put robots in animals. This realization that people are better allies than robots comes with something that Zavok says to him in the Bad Guys miniseries. Surge can't remember her past though, so the only thing she knows is that she hates Sonic and she hates Starline. After the miniseries, Surge's story continues in the main series. So Starline, Kit and Surge go to an Eggman base to take over it. At this point in time, Surge is choosing to work for Starline so she can betray him, by the way. While there, Starline takes control over all Eggman's robots, which leads Sonic to the base as well. When Sonic arrives, everything starts kicking off. Surge tries to fight and she is mad at him. I already said how this fight ends when I was talking about Sonic's character, with his little explanation of why he does what he does. But in this fight, Surge points out some of the reasons that she hates Sonic. Sonic gets slammed into the ground by Surge and introduces himself. She then says this: "Oh, I know who you are. It's all I know, really. And that's the problem. I am your fault. Starline, Eggman, sure, they're part of this, and they'll get theirs. But it really comes down to you. If you had just taken them out, I wouldn't have been made. Or if that goes against your precious moral code, you could have just rolled over and quit. But no, you kept on fighting. You kept on giving idiots freedom to repeat their awful mistakes. And you just kept going and going. And the whole world loves you for it. So I'm ending it. All of it. You, the docs, the world, is what you all deserve." They continue fighting, and while this is happening, Eggman and Starline are having a mech battle. In the end, Eggman beats him, and we get this really hard scene where Eggman's just laying in on him. He towers over Starline while he tells about how he's always been the better and will continue to be better than him. Eggman slams him into the ground and leaves. We see Starline on the floor. "I planned everything out, down to the smallest detail. I had every advantage, accounted for every contingency, and I still lost. I did everything right. He destroyed all that effort in minutes. I'm a failure, an utter disgraceful failure." The building around him starts to crumble and fall onto him, and he actually dies. I was expecting him to come back, but no, they actually kill him, and I think this is probably the best way they could have went about killing him. It shows both Eggman's power and Starline's desperation and recklessness. Even though he believed he planned everything perfectly and was finally better than Eggman, Eggman still won. The rest of this arc is also really good, having some great moments and Surge being a really good character in my opinion. That fight with her and Whisper where she took the powers of the Wisp from her was also really good. I like how even though Starline is dead, Surge still sees visions of him talking to her randomly, like he's haunting her, and it creates some really good scenes. All of the fights with Surge look awesome as well, with how the electricity makes for some stunning panels. We get some scenes in this arc as well of Surge doubting herself, which is a huge contrast from her overconfident attitude she has when she's fighting. I like the scene where Eggman grabs her by her hair and throws her on the floor. I know, I just thought it was funny. I also don't think I mentioned this explicitly yet, but the art and paneling is amazing in these comics, and these Surge fights really highlight that for me. This arc ends with a big showdown where Sonic and Tails team up with Eggman and Metal Sonic to take down Surge and Kit. This fight ends with Surge being beat and Kit ignoring Tails' words, and staying with Surge instead of turning good, Surge also rejecting the offer. Scrapnik Island is the latest miniseries as of writing this, and it revolves around Sonic and Tails crashing onto the destroyed Death Egg, which has been turned into a metal island run by seemingly friendly robots for the most part. We even see Meta Sonic, but this time he's good. We can't say the same for Mecha Knuckles though. We get an epic robot fight scene between the two mechas, and it causes Mecha Sonic to turn evil again because of this cool ass vision he had, which reminds him of how he was made. Mecha Sonic tries to insert his mind into Sonic's using an old Eggman machine, and partially succeeds, leading to some really interesting dialogue where Mecha explains his anger and sadness he feels from Eggman throwing him away and casting him aside. In the end, Mecha sees through the evil after this scene, where he's about to fall into the fire Toy Story 3 style, and Sonic gives him another speech. Mecha says that Sonic should leave him because it's what he deserves. He failed both his mission as Eggman's minion and the mission to protect the Scrapniks. To him, he's worthless. And Sonic says that you gotta give yourself value and purpose. No one else. You gotta live for you. That's what it really means to be free. Sonic and Mecha go back to the surface and Mecha gets allowed back into the group of Scrapniks. Sonic starts crying and tells us why. Sonic then says that they're not his tears. The miniseries ends with Sonic's and Mecha's minds emerging and Mecha Sonic and Mecha Knuckles being freed from Eggman's control, before Sonic and Tails leave the island to continue the main story. The next arc up is Urban Warfare, and we get introduced to a new character that's named Lanolin the Sheep, who is a design I really like. We've seen her before in the background at the Resistance HQ, but this time she's played a major role. She forms a team she leads to a Tangle and Whisper, which Tangle names the Diamond Cutters, something that Whisper isn't a fan of at first, since it was the name of our old dead team. But it leads to this nice scene with her and Tangle, where Whisper realises that the way she's been acting isn't the correct way to move forward from what Mimic has done to her. So she lets him keep the name, and she realises that instead of continuing to try and work solo, she belongs with Tangle. The new Diamond Cutters and Sonic go to one of Eggman's cities that they visited previously, and they find out that it's been growing by itself, so they investigate it. The Diamond Cutters fall into a portal that takes them to this weird cyber world, and Sonic calls for backup. We get some more of Knuckles and Amy, which is nice, and Silver and Blaze make their first appearance in a while in the main series, which is great to see since I love both of these characters. We also get the first actual Team Dark moment in the comics. Only took them 58 issues. Still, it's good to see them since, you know, who doesn't love Team Dark? Also, look at this character lineup. Overall, I did really enjoy this arc. It had a great premise, some great action, and introduced it to a new and pretty likeable character at this point. And Shadow was actually pretty good in this arc. Since the Metal Virus, he's not been great in my opinion, and actually pretty bad at some points. So it's nice seeing him in a better light again. The next arc we have is Misadventures, and the main focus of this arc is around Mimic disguising as a new character who wants to join the Diamond Cutters so he can get closer to both enact his revenge and because Clutch requested it of him, so Clutch can get a man on the inside as he put it. Clutch is a villain that appears in the arcs I glossed over a bit. When we first saw him, he was a retired villain who was a Chow racer. However, he did not treat the Chows very well. So Cream, Amy, Rouge and some other people took him down and saved the Chows. Meeting Sonic is what caused Clutch to go back to being a villain though. The main plot of this is accompanied by some separate moments where we get to see some characters just hanging out, like Amy and Knuckles on Angel Island and Sonic and Blaze in Spagonia. We see more of Silver and Blaze as well in this, which is really nice. There's even a part when Knuckles and the Chaotix need to track down the Babylon Rogues after they steal something from Angel Island as quick as possible so Vector can make it to Vanilla's house in time for dinner. Does that not just sound peak? I like how after they fight the Babylon Rogues, Vector realizes that he's going to be late, and then he gets disappointed when he realizes that Espio and Charmy were invited too. They use pretty much all my favourite characters in this arc. Instead of being like other arcs where it's one consistent story, this has multiple different stories that all relate back to the main plot with Mimic and Clutch. Like how the Babylon Rogues stole the artifact that Amy was at Angel Islands with to give Knuckles, leading to Knuckles and the Chaotix fighting them, which leads us to then find out that it was Clutch that hired them. Surge and Kit also return, this time pretending to be good so they can learn about their past, promised by Clutch. Mimic, Surge and Kit all work together on the inside under Clutch's command. I've not really been talking about the annuals much, but in the 2024 one, this is one story I really like that centers around Mimic's backstory. We see his old failed career as an attempted actor, which he then left behind due to the Eggman War that happened during Forces. During this war, he learned to be independent, and he joined many groups of people fighting against Eggman, but only as a means for him to survive. We get shown many teams that he joined only to betray later. He comes to the realization in his mind that everyone is putting up an act just as he is. Everyone has a little emptiness inside. We all utilise activities like the arts or playing hero as a way to cover the void within, as if it's something to be ashamed of. We then see the first time he met Whisper. This version of her is far happier and outgoing than the version of the present though. We learn that she was the one to introduce him to the Diamond Cutters, something that she probably remembers very well. However, out of all the groups that he joined in the past, the Diamond Cutters were the only one that he'd actually start to bond with, directly contradicting his beliefs that everyone is putting up an act. When he thinks about this memory, he describes it as a very dangerous one. He thinks back to the time where him and the Diamond Cutters were sitting around a fire, and Whisper compliments him. He leaves to go to the water. Did I just crave validation? Was it ever about the spotlight? I can't be myself around them. They don't know what I've done. Friendship's supposed to feel good, solid, like a foundation. So why does it hurt so much? They don't see I'm a walking contradiction. One look past my facade, and I'll be thrown away. I can't afford to be so fragile. I look back at my acting days with soul-wrenching truth staring back at me. The more things change, the more they stay the same. It's a rehearsal. They're all mirrors, saying what I want to hear so they can get what they want. They can't be trusted. I refuse to play this game anymore. And after that, Mimic betrayed the Diamond Cutters. We see a lot into how he thinks with this monologue. The Diamond Cutters are all nice people that want what's best for him, and they think of him as a friend. But to him, they're just pretending so they can get what they want. Just like how he acted many times before. However, he starts to develop feelings towards them as well, which he sees as danger. It directly challenges his way of life. And instead of accepting that he was wrong and changing, he decides to kill them as a way to continue his wrong ways. The annual ends in current day, with the current Diamond Cutters waiting around a fire for Sonic to arrive. Mimic is currently undercover in the Diamond Cutters as Duo. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. Only with this knife will I finally be cleansed. Mimic attempts to kill Whisper from behind, but Sonic arrives and scares him off before he can. Soon, the pain deep within myself will be washed away, and this can all be a bad, bad dream. I'm selfish, arrogant, colder than a frozen lake. I enjoy the chase, watching others struggle, and I love that about me. I know what I am. So, who are you? The next arc is a Phantom Riders arc, And I should probably preference this by saying that I'm a huge Sonic Riders fan, so I already love this from the concept alone. This arc centers around the Extreme Gear race put together by the Restoration HQ and Clean Sweep Inc., a company that Clutch owns that goes into old Eggman bases and sells off parts they can find there. Jewel, the person who runs the Restoration, doesn't know that Clutch is evil, so she partners up with him for the race. The main races in the qualifying are Sonic, Tails, Amy, Tangle, Whisper, Lanolin, Duo, Surge, Kit, and the Babylon Rogues. During the qualifying, Surge uses a remote that Clutch gave her, which causes Sonic and his team's board to malfunction, getting them disqualified from the race. After this, Sonic and his friend are talking about what happened, and they suspect that something's up. That's when Eggman appears. He tells them that he made a new board that he dubs the Extreme Gear. He says that he doesn't like Clean Sweep for their operation of essentially stealing from him. Eggman tells Sonic that he can use the board to get back in the race. In return, he wants Sonic to find out who's running Clean Sweep so he can get his revenge. Sonic comes back into the race with Eggman's new board, this time though as the Phantom Rider. One complaint I do want to make quickly is I don't really like Lanolin as a character. She's caused more problems than good. Not only did she kick Silver from the Diamond Cutters when he tried to attack Mimic with Whisper, she also didn't listen to Whisper when she suspected that Duo was Mimic. And she's also the person who decides to kick Sonic's team from the race due to safety violations with their boards malfunctioning. Like, I get the last one a bit, but like, come on. Could she really not notice that something was going on when all of Sonic Team's boards malfunctioned? And you think she'd listen a bit more to Whisper when she suspects that Duo might be Mimic. Whisper just dropped her suspicions pretty quick though. The races in this arc were cool as hell though, and they were extremely fun. I think it's pretty cool how Surge is on a motorbike as well. This arc is incredibly fun and just a joy all round. And we get some great moments with the characters like Kit and Surge, and how they start to enjoy the hero life after being cheered for at the races and meeting a fan. But you get some sad moments with Surge, like when she tries to leave Clean Sweep to become a hero, as she put it, but Clutch doesn't let her. She also looks cool as hell with her hair down. The Babylon Rogues were great as always, and all the action scenes were really enjoyable, and I love all the new characters' riders' outfits. The way the story progresses with the Restoration finding out Clean Sweep's true intentions was also done really well. The final issue of this arc is phenomenal and genuinely a masterpiece. It's so tense and fast paced and packed, with Whisper finding out that Duo was Mimic and chasing him down, shouting at crowds of people trying to find him. The air shuttle crashing down on the city with the Chaotix, Tails and Amy inside. The Babylon Rogues coming to save the day by rediverting the ship. Surge and Kit coming back to take revenge on Clutch. I really do hope they become heroes and join Sonic, because you can tell Surge is starting to think about it. All the rush and panic of evacuating the Restoration HQ before the ship crashes into it. Sonic challenging Jet to a challenge of who can get the most people out the quickest is so in character for both of them. And then Clutch being exposed and Mimic barely making it out. Rough and Tumble also taking a turn for the better from what it looks like, and being forced to join the Restoration. I guess Vanilla's words really got to them. This arc ends with Sonic and Tails heading back to Tails' house from the Sonic battle game, and finding out that their Chaos Emerald has been stolen. This arc really embodies everything I love about the franchise and is genuinely amazing. And I love that bit at the end where Jet says that he's willing to call it a draw, but Sonic owes him a real race. It's such a good moment, man. Like, I love this series. I do hope that Surge and Kit become good guys as well, and I really hope that Whisper gets her revenge on Mimic. The final issue that's out right now as of making this video is 76. Due to it being the start of a new arc, it's mainly setting things up for what's next after the Restoration HQ is destroyed. We see Sonic go to the Chaotix where he asks them to team up and find Clutch as he's gone missing since the race. And we get this really great version of Silver's character in this issue. We see Silver and Blaze in the garden after the ship crashed, and he's speaking to her about how he wants to turn the garden into an orchid far bigger than before. Linking into this character's trait of hope and optimism, and Blaze says some stuff about how even if she's not in her dimension and on vacation, she'll still look out for her friends because they're her people. Also, the reason her and Silver weren't in the Phantom Rider arc is because her and Silver were exploring the world together. I love these two as a duo as well, and I hope we see more of them. We see a far more serious version of Silver's character in this issue, and I love it. When speaking to the Diamond Cutters again, Whisper says that she wants to find and end Mimic. Tangle says that they need to stop him, not end him. Whisper turns to Silver and says, "Will you join us to stop Mimic?" Absolutely. Like, damn, both of these two want Mimic dead and I love it. This also means that Silver's back in the Diamond Cutters, which I think is a great place for him to be team-wise. The issue ends with Sonic and the Chaotix heading out to follow a lead to find Clutch. And this issue was a banger. Probably one of the best characterizations of Sid we've had so far in the comics, and Sonic teaming up with the Chaotix is going to be fun in the next issue. I'm really excited to see where they take this story, and I'm here for more serious Silver. He does still have his fun moments though, like when he tells Amy about the orchid, which I think makes for a very nice balance of both fun and serious, which I love. I think my top 3 arcs will probably be the Phantom Rider for pretty much all the reasons I mentioned in like the last part. I try not to repeat myself too much. I love the art, I love the racing, I love the action, I love the story, I love the characters, pretty much everything about it. Actually, not pretty much, I love everything about it. My only complaint is that Lanolin isn't a very likeable character in this, but you can kind of understand her, I guess. And I am a Riders fanboy, so obviously I'm going to love this arc. Metal Virus is obviously also in the top 3. It's long, sad, and downright hopeless at times. The way the characters go and the way they react feels so real and how they should and would if they were in this situation. Apart from Shadow, obviously. And the ending to this arc is hype as well, with Supersonic and Silver. And the final arc I'd have in this top 3 is Overpowered, or whatever Surge's arc is called. I think it's Overpowered, I'm not sure. I find Surge to be such an interesting and understandable character. I really do feel bad for her, and I understand her hatred for Sonic, and I love how her character progresses in the later arcs. The comics have introduced me to some of my favourite Sonic characters, period, and I've just mentioned why I love Surge, and I also love characters like Whisper, and I think the new arsenal of villains is really cool and interesting as well. Starline's character changed a lot throughout the story, and his death really hit. The art really sells his regret and desperation. He's a cunning and smart villain who's always 2 steps ahead throughout the comics, but after losing to Eggman, we finally see him break. I love Mimic as a character, but I hate him at the same time, and I think that's how he should be, and he's perfect for that. I think he's well written and I love him as a character, but he is evil and rotten to the core. He's had multiple chances to change for the better in the past, but he chooses not to. The 2024 annual really helps develop him as a character and flesh him out more, like I mentioned, by giving us a look into his mind and how he thinks. Just a few more things I want to mention. The art is obviously amazing throughout, and it only gets better as the comics go on. I also really think it's a really charming addition that at the end of every issue they show some fan art from people that sent it in. I think it's really cute to see drawings from both older lifelong fans and some younger people who also love Sonic. That's one thing I've always loved about the franchise, its ability to appeal to both younger and older audiences through things like its style and mature stories, which is something we lost in the Meta era. But these comics and recent games are starting to bring back the style and swag I love this franchise for. So that about wraps up my thoughts on the comics. As a lifelong fan, these are everything I could ever want from the franchise, and they really hit for me. I seriously love these comics so much, and they're definitely some of my favourite Sonic media ever. Maybe even my favourite ever. There's something about them that does something for me. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And maybe consider subscribing if you want to support the channel. I put a lot of effort in this video, so I appreciate you sticking around. For now, this is goodbye, and until next time.